Welcome to the eerie hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. Tonight, we travel down a road less taken, a path that diverges from the known world and leads somewhere the map doesn't acknowledge. We explore the quiet dread that settles when the familiar turns alien, and the simple act of going home becomes an impossible journey through a landscape that mirrors your deepest fears. This is a story whispered on the wind, carried on static, and found only when you stop looking for the way back. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now let's begin. But remember, once the story starts, something always follows. The engine hums a familiar, tired song as you make the turn off the main highway. Just a small shortcut, you told yourself, a way to bypass the evening rush that usually snarls traffic at the usual exit. The day has been long, the office air thick and stale, and a dull ache sits behind your eyes. You know this area well enough, or you thought you did. You take the ramp, the concrete gray and unremarkable, just like any other stretch of forgotten road connecting one place to the next. The sky above is a bruised purple, the last light fading quickly. It should feel like heading towards rest, towards the soft glow of your own windows. But a subtle shift occurs the moment your tires leave the well-worn path. The air grows heavy, still, and breathless, pressing in from the sides. The traffic signals ahead seem to hold their red light for an unnaturally long time, bleeding crimson into the deepening twilight. You glance at the GPS mounted on the dash. Its screen is frozen, the blue line of your intended route replaced by a stark, unmoving gray landscape. You try the radio, wanting the comfort of a familiar voice or song, but the station dissolves into a shriek of static, then a low fading noise. Continuous hum that feels more like a vibration in your teeth than a sound in the air. A creeping sense of unease, sharp and unwelcome, begins to unfurl in your chest, mild annoyance curdling into a definite anxiety. The road ahead is lined with trees, tall and dark against the fading sky, but they are too uniform, too identical, spaced with a disturbing precision that feels unnatural. And then, just a flicker, a brief, dark smear at the edge of your vision in the shadows between the repetitive trunks, gone before you can focus on it, leaving you with the certainty that you saw something. The car continues to coast forward, the engines drone the only sound beneath the persistent, low hum of the static emanating from the dead radio. The air, heavy and still just moments ago, now feels unnervingly cold, a damp chill that seeps through the vents despite the heater being off. You tighten your grip on the steering wheel, knuckles white. The repetitive trees lining the road stretch on, an infinite, unnatural corridor of identical forms. Their branches are bare, reaching like skeletal fingers towards the sky. But even in the gloom, you can tell their shape is wrong, too sharp, too angular. The streetlights, which should be starting to appear, are either missing entirely or are positioned at impossible angles, casting long, distorted shadows that seem to writhe at the edges of your headlights. The road itself is different now. The smooth asphalt has given way to cracked and uneven pavement. The lines faded or gone altogether. A central supernatural event occurs. The road ahead dips unnaturally, falling into a stretch of thick, swirling mist that appeared from nowhere, blanketing the path entirely despite the lack of ground fog elsewhere. It's an atmospheric detail that chills you more than the cold air. The mist doesn't feel like water vapor. It has a strange, almost metallic tang to it, thick and cloying, a moment of psychological fracture sets in. The mild anxiety has escalated into a cold, prickling fear that crawls across your scalp. You consider stopping, turning around, but looking in the rearview mirror shows only the endless dark corridor of identical trees receding into a deeper blackness. The recurring symbolic motif of the repetitive trees is now more menacing, closing in, their uniformity feeling less like nature and more like a cage. An ambiguous or interpretive line hangs in the quiet. Perhaps the mist doesn't obscure the road, but is the road now. You drive into the mist. The headlights swallowed almost instantly, reducing visibility to mere feet. The metallic tang intensifies, thick and suffocating, catching in your throat. It's cold in here, a different kind of cold than the air outside. A deep internal chill that feels impossible to shake. The car's progress slows to a crawl, the tires crunching on something uneven beneath the mist. The static hum from the radio has changed pitch, lower now, vibrating in your bones, and beneath it, you hear a new, unsettling sound, a slow, deliberate dripping, somewhere close, but impossible to locate within the formless white. This dripping is the vivid atmospheric detail, relentless and precise, like a leaking tap in an empty, echoing chamber. A central supernatural event unfolds. Shapes begin to form in the mist, just beyond the reach of the headlights. They aren't distinct figures, but vague, shifting masses, darker than the mist itself, that drift slowly alongside the car, keeping pace. You press the lock button on the door, a futile gesture that doesn't alleviate the intense psychological fracture blooming within you. A deep, primal fear has taken root, cold and consuming, leaving no room for rational thought. Only the desperate urge to escape. The recurring symbolic motif of the identical trees is still present, their faint, sharp outlines visible sometimes through gaps in the mist. But now they seem to be pressing closer, their perfect rows tightening, guiding you forward whether you want to go or not. An ambiguous line surfaces in the silence. Perhaps the shapes in the mist aren't just observing you, but are waiting for you to arrive. The mist begins to thin, revealing a landscape that is even more desolate and disturbing than the endless road of identical trees. The pavement has completely disappeared, replaced by rough, broken stones covered in a thin, slick layer of something dark and viscous. The dripping sound continues, echoing now as the mist dissipates, revealing the source. It's coming from the skeletal branches of the trees lining the path, droplets of that same dark, thick substance falling onto the stones. This strange, sticky liquid is the vivid atmospheric detail, catching the faint light and shimmering with an unnatural sheen. The repetitive trees are still here, their unnatural uniformity more pronounced now. But amongst them, a central supernatural event is occurring. The streetlights, the strangely angled ones you saw earlier, are now planted directly in the path ahead, blocking the way like monstrous, silent sentinels. They aren't just strangely oriented. They are impossibly tall, their dark metal limbs twisting into crude, angular shapes against the gray sky, their lights emitting a sickly, pale yellow glow that seems to leach warmth and color from everything it touches. A profound psychological fracture occurs. You stare at the blocked path, the fear giving way to a surge of desperate, illogical panic. You wrench the steering wheel, trying to veer off the path, but the car doesn't respond. It keeps moving forward, slow and deliberate, directly towards the nearest light. The recurring symbolic motif of the streetlights has deepened in threat. They are no longer just background anomalies, but active obstacles, barriers, or perhaps something worse. An ambiguous or interpretive line forms in your mind. Perhaps the path isn't blocked at all, but merely rearranged for you. The car stops just inches from the base of one of the impossibly tall, angled streetlights. Its sickly yellow glow washes over the hood, making the paint look like corroded metal. The dripping from the trees has slowed, almost stopped, leaving only the persistent, low static hum from the radio, now punctuated by faint, rhythmic tapping sounds from outside the car. The air here is utterly still, heavy and cold, with the lingering metallic tang of the mist and a new, sour scent like damp earth mixed with something undeniably rotten. This combination of stillness and sourness is the vivid atmospheric detail pressing in from all sides. A central supernatural event is happening just outside your window. The dark, viscous substance on the stones is moving. Not flowing, but creeping, spreading slowly away from the trees and towards the car, like thick fingers stretching across the ground. You watch it, transfixed, the surge of panic replaced by a horrifying psychological fracture. A chilling resignation settles over you, the fight draining away, leaving you with a passive, detached terror. It's as if a part of your mind has broken off, unable to cope, simply observing the unfolding horror with a strange calm. The recurring symbolic motif of the repetitive trees and angled streetlights now feels like a pattern, a design that you have driven directly into the center of. They aren't just background, they are the framework of this place. An ambiguous or interpretive line crosses your thoughts. Perhaps the creeping substance isn't just moving away from the trees, but pulling itself towards the light. The engine falls silent. The headlights dim, then extinguish, plunging everything into near-total darkness, save for the sickly yellow glow of the impossible streetlights and the faint, cold shimmer of the viscous substance creeping on the ground. The tapping outside stops. The static from the radio fades, leaving behind only the oppressive silence and the persistent, low hum that vibrates within you. A resonance you now realize comes not from the car, but from the air itself. Or perhaps from the ground. You sit in the quiet dark, the image of the stretching dark substance burned into your vision, the sour scent still heavy in your lungs. The fear has receded, replaced by a profound emptiness, a sense of having reached the end of a journey that had no destination. The strange, identical trees are lost in the darkness now. The streetlights the only points of reference, casting long, distorted shadows that seem to writhe and stretch like living things. You don't look back, knowing the road you took is gone, dissolved into mist or absorbed by the uniform trees. The recurring symbolic motif of the trees and lights remains, etched into the memory, a chilling landscape against which your small, silent car sits, a forgotten marker. There are no answers here, only the quiet aftermath of a wrong turn. The psychological residue is a cold, lingering dread, a feeling of being permanently displaced, of having crossed a threshold from which there is no return. The unanswered questions hang in the heavy air. What were the shapes in the mist? What is the substance on the ground? Where did the road go? And what, exactly, waits beyond the circle of these impossible lights? You listen to the silence, which isn't truly silent, filled instead with the faint internal hum and the memory of that precise, slow dripping sound. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet. The drive continues, the turn feeling less like a choice and more like a forgotten command. The road does not wind, it coils. The trees that line the asphalt are no longer merely trees. They are bent, their branches reaching like skeletal fingers, always angled inward toward some unseen, impossible center. They appear with unnerving frequency now, each cluster a little more twisted than the last. You pass a weathered barn with a collapsed roof, sunlight slanting through its ribs, only to see it again moments later, identical in its state of ruin, yet feeling further away somehow. The light itself seems wrong, muted and heavy, clinging to the air like dust. The landscape shifts with impossible ease. A stretch of scrubland gives way to a thick, silent pine forest in the space of a single bend, only for the scrubland to reappear as you round the next curve. Distance feels meaningless here. You could be driving in circles, or perhaps something is simply moving the world around the car as you pass through it. There is a growing, sickening certainty that the road is not taking you anywhere. It is holding you. A smell begins to permeate the car, subtle at first, then growing insistent. A deep, cloying scent of damp earth and decay, like soil disturbed after a long burial. It clings to the back of your throat. The unnatural silence outside the car deepens, swallowing the usual sounds of wind and distant life, leaving only the hum of your engine and the beat of your own frantic heart. Your anxiety, a dull thrumming in your chest since taking the detour, sharpens into a cold, cutting fear. How long have you been driving like this? The question surfaces, insidious and chilling. Hours? Days? Your memory of leaving the main road, of the decision that brought you here, begins to fray at the edges, losing detail, becoming hazy and unreal. A strange detachment settles over you, the feeling of watching the car from above, seeing yourself inside, a small, trapped figure moving through an impossible maze. Beside the road, near a particularly gnarled cluster of the reaching trees, you see it, a single, small shoe, worn and muddy, lying on the verge as if recently dropped. It is a splash of stark, human vulnerability in this increasingly alien landscape. It sits there, silent, a small, unsettling detail in the vast, indifferent quiet. You drive past it, but the image sears itself into your mind. Someone else was here, or perhaps someone else is still here. The impossible road simply ceases. It does not merge or connect. It just ends at the edge of a town, a place that stands silent under a sky the color of bruised paper. You step onto cracked asphalt, the air thick with a stillness that feels less like peace and more like held breath. Houses line the street, gray and weathered, their windows like vacant eyes staring out from under heavy brows of porch roofs. Every door is boarded, every window shuttered or opaque with grime. Cars sit parked at curbs, coated in a fine, ancient dust, their shapes distorted into lumps of decay. It is a tableau of abandonment, absolute and unnerving. Yet there's something else, something that prickles the skin and tightens the chest. It is the profound, undeniable sense of being watched. Unseen eyes follow your movement down the empty street. They peer from the black gaps between warped boards on the windows. They linger in the shadowed recesses of porches. You can feel the weight of their gaze, cold and clinical, dissecting your presence here. The silence itself seems to hold this observation, pressing in from all sides. A faint sound breaks the quiet, a distinct, sharp creak from a door somewhere down the street, followed by the softest thud as it closes. But when you scan the desolate row of houses, nothing appears out of place. This happens again, a whisper of movement just at the edge of vision, a flicker in a grimy window that resolves into nothing but dust and faded light. The air carries the scent of this disuse, dry dust, crumbling wood, the metallic tang of rust from abandoned cars. But beneath it, a strange, unsettling sweetness clings to the air, organic and faintly cloying, like overripe fruit left to rot. It mixes with the sound of the wind, which doesn't merely blow, that seems to carry sounds just below the threshold of hearing. Are they whispers? Words forming and dissipating before they reach your understanding? Your name, perhaps, drawn out and distorted. The symbols are here too, just as they were on the road, just as they have been before this journey even began. They are etched into the peeling paint of door frames, scratched into the thick dust on window panes, crudely carved into the wooden backs of porch swings that creak faintly in the wind. The same twisted knot, the same series of jagged lines forming an impossible shape. They are everywhere, a silent, relentless language scrawled across the face of this dead town, linking it to the road you left behind, linking it to something else, something that feels personal now, accusatory. Paranoia takes root, twisting the fear in your gut into something sharp and bitter. You start to mutter, quiet at first, then louder. "What do you want?" You ask the empty street, the silent windows. "Why are you watching?" There is no answer but the wind and the elusive whispers. The watcher is them, yes, but are they also you? Do those unseen eyes belong to the parts of yourself you try to hide? Your doubts, your failures, your buried guilt. You argue with the silence, with the dust, with the symbols that seem to mock your inability to comprehend. "I didn't do anything," you might say, though the accusation hasn't been spoken aloud. The town waits, watches, and its silence is a profound, heavy judgment you can no longer ignore. This place doesn't just observe, it remembers, and it seems to think you remember too, something you've tried desperately to forget. Welcome to the eerie hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. They wait in the shadowed corners, behind locked doors that shouldn't exist, in the dead spaces between heartbeats. This is not a place you find. It is a place that finds you, slowly, inexorably, pulling you inward with threads thinner than silk, but stronger than steel. You may not remember how you arrived, only that the world outside has blurred into an irrelevant dream, leaving only the stone beneath your feet and the oppressive stillness of the air. The place begins subtly, a forgotten alleyway that stretches too far, a house with too many windows, a forest where the trees whisper secrets in a language you almost understand. It feels ancient and vast, indifferent to your fear, merely observing as you take the first tentative step deeper into its embrace. There is a chill here that has nothing to do with temperature, a cold that settles in the marrow of your bones and whispers of things that should not be known. The air is thick, carrying the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic and sour, like old pennies and forgotten tears. Your own reflection in a cracked window pane seems to hesitate for a moment, before mimicking your movement, a slight, unsettling delay. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now, let's begin. But remember, once the story starts, something always follows. The alley narrows, the brick walls closing in, slick with a perpetual, unnatural moisture. Overhead, the sky is a bruised purple, not evening, not dawn, just wrong. The air here is heavy, difficult to draw into your lungs, tasting of dust and something like ozone before a storm that never breaks. You move forward, not by choice, but by an unseen current that nudges you deeper into the labyrinthine streets. The sounds of the outside world, traffic, distant voices, have vanished entirely, replaced by a profound silence, broken only by the scuff of your own shoes, and, occasionally, a faint, wet drip somewhere just out of sight. You pass windows, dark and opaque, offering no glimpse within, only catching distorted versions of yourself in their warped surfaces. These reflections are unsettling. One shows you older, hair streaked with gray, another younger, eyes wide with an innocent curiosity that feels alien now. In one particularly grimy pane, your reflection doesn't look at you at all, but stares intently at something behind you, its expression frozen in silent horror. A tremor runs through your hand. You clench it into a fist, trying to anchor yourself to the physical. It's just tired eyes, you tell yourself, the strain of this oppressive atmosphere playing tricks. But the image lingers, the silent, terrified double watching something you cannot see. The streetlights here are not lamps, but glowing orbs of uncertain origin, casting long, shifting shadows that seem to coil and writhe at the edge of your vision. You reach a corner, and the alley ahead isn't a continuation, but a mirror image of the one you just left. Identical in every damp brick and cracked window. Did you turn at all? Or did the path simply fold back on itself? The silence seems to listen for your answer. The street has become a corridor of identical doors, stretching into an unnerving distance. Each door is painted a peeling, faded blue, and each has a small, tarnished brass knocker, shaped like a clenched fist. The air here feels thinner, carrying a faint scent of something sweet but decaying, like overripe fruit left forgotten in a cellar. Your breath catches in your throat. The silence is no longer just an absence of sound, but a palpable weight pressing against your eardrums. You walk alongside the doors, compelled by an unseen force, your hand hovering uncertainly near the cold metal of a knocker. They all look the same, yet a subtle difference prickles at the edge of your awareness. A scratch that wasn't there before, a shadow that clings too tightly to the frame. As you pass one door, the brass knocker seems to vibrate, a low hum resonating in your chest. You stop, your heart hammering against your ribs, a frantic bird in a cage. Leaning closer, you see it isn't vibrating, but subtly shifting, the metal rippling like liquid beneath your gaze. It's impossible, of course. Metal doesn't do that. A wave of dizziness washes over you, the walls seeming to sway. You press a hand against the cool, damp brick to steady yourself, but the brick feels too yielding, like pressing into old moss. Doubt gnaws at you. Is this real? Is any of this real? You see your reflection in the brass of the shifting knocker, distorted into a grotesque caricature, mouth open in a silent scream you cannot hear. The identical doors stretch ahead, each one a potential threshold to something unknown, something perhaps waiting to be woken by a knock. You wonder if opening one would lead you further in, or simply back to where you started. The corridor of doors twists unexpectedly, opening into a space that defies easy description. It's a room, perhaps, but its walls are vast, curved surfaces of polished black stone that absorb the strange light and your own reflection. The air here is colder, biting at exposed skin, carrying the acrid tang of burnt wiring and something profoundly wrong. The silence is still present, but it's layered now with a low, resonant hum that seems to emanate from the stone itself, a sound felt more than heard, vibrating deep within your bones. High above, far beyond sight, something moves. You can't see it, but you feel its presence, a pressure that pushes down on your chest, making each breath a conscious effort. The reflections in the black stone are no longer just distorted images of yourself. They flicker, showing glimpses of other figures, fleeting and spectral, standing just behind you or merging into your own form. One moment you see yourself alone. The next, a gaunt, hollow-eyed face stares back from within your own reflection, its mouth a silent, gaping O. Terror is a cold knot in your stomach, tightening with each passing second. You press your hands against the slick stone, desperate for purchase, for reality, but the surface feels like water, accepting your touch only to let it pass through. A chilling realization begins to dawn. This place isn't just built, it's grown, a living, malevolent entity taking physical form. The countless doors, the shifting walls, the reflections that show more than should be possible, they are all part of a single, horrific organism. You are trapped within its anatomy, navigating its impossible organs and pulsating veins of reality. The hum intensifies, filling the space, and you feel a sickening sense of being absorbed, becoming one with the stone, with the reflections, with the terrible silence. You have reached the heart of the maze, a place where reality buckles and tears like old paper. It is not a town square, nor a building, but a nexus of pure, unadulterated chaos. The polished black stone from before flows into surfaces that shift in impossible colors, hues that shouldn't exist, vibrating on the edge of sight, making your eyes water. Objects float listlessly in the air, fragmented pieces of furniture, disjointed limbs of mannequins, tarnished brass knockers spinning slowly, as if tethered to invisible strings. Gravity here is a suggestion, not a rule. Your feet feel heavy one moment, light as air the next, threatening to send you tumbling into the swirling vortex of impossible light. The air is thin, desperately thin, making it difficult to draw a full breath, each gasp sharp and painful in your lungs. This is where the entity's presence is overwhelming, not seen, but felt as a crushing weight against your skull, an unbearable, high-pitched sound that scrapes against your sanity, and a draining cold that penetrates everything. The reflections are everywhere now, not just in surfaces, but shimmering in the air itself, in the impossible colors, in the floating debris. They show 1,000 versions of you, screaming, crying, laughing hysterically, forms dissolving into abstract shapes of pure terror. The recurring motif dominates. These are not just reflections, they are echoes, fragments of those trapped here. their psyches shattered and scattered across this impossible space. Your grasp on reality frays, snapping like a worn thread. You feel yourself slipping, the raw terror overwhelming, the world dissolving into a kaleidoscope of impossible light and sound. Is that your own scream echoing in the cacophony, or the scream of 1,000 others? You understand now, with chilling clarity, what this place is: a digestive system for souls, absorbing and fragmenting those who become lost within its walls. Escape? The thought is a cruel joke. There is no out, only a different kind of in, a final absorption into the fabric of the horror itself. The impossible colors pulse, drawing you closer, promising a final, terrifying form of understanding. The impossible colors recede, fading back into the polished black stone, leaving behind a dim, bruised light. The crushing weight lessens. The unbearable sound softens to the low, resonant hum once more. Gravity reasserts itself, albeit weakly, and you stumble, catching yourself against a surface that now feels solid, cold, and real again. The thin air remains, but you can breathe, shallow gasps that still burn in your lungs. You are no longer in the chaotic heart, but in a quiet corner, a small alcove formed by the curved stone walls. The floating objects are gone. The vortex of light vanished. All that remains are the surfaces of the black stone, reflecting the dim light and your own weary form. You stare at your reflection, half expecting to see the distorted, screaming faces from before, but it is just you, pale and shaken, eyes wide with a horror that will never leave. Yet, the reflection is not quite right. Your eyes in the stone seem older, burdened by centuries of witnessing unseen things. They hold a deep, quiet sorrow that feels like a borrowed grief. The hum of the stone continues, a low thrumming beneath your feet, a constant reminder that you are still within its living architecture. You survived, perhaps, or perhaps you were simply moved to a different chamber. The questions pile up. Where is this place? What is it? Are there others here? The brass knocker motif is absent, but you notice a faint, swirling pattern within the black stone itself, almost like fingerprints left on glass, but too vast, too intricate to belong to any human hand. They seem to draw the dim light inward, absorbing it, just as the place absorbs everything else. You are left with the silence, the hum, the cold stone, and the reflection of someone who looks like you, but carries a weight you did not have before entering. The path back the way you came is gone, the corridor of doors replaced by more curving black stone. There is only one direction now, and it leads deeper into the silence. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet. You are back. The road signs are familiar. The asphalt, a known quantity under the tires. You see the turn for your street, the lights of home in the distance. A deep breath, ragged, and tasting of dust and something else, something metallic and cold. You escaped. You are here. But the reflection in the rearview mirror isn't quite right. For a flicker, the highway behind you isn't highway at all, but the impossible, gray vista of that place, stretching into a static, choked distance. Then it's gone. Just taillights and empty road, but the glimpse lingers, a cold weight settling behind your eyes. The crushing static, like 1,000 voices screaming through broken airwaves, doesn't fill your ears anymore, but you feel its echo in the frantic pounding of your pulse, in the way your thoughts snag and loop, repeating nonsensical phrases or distorted images. You walk through your own door, the wood solid, the air smelling of normalcy. Yet, the feeling of being watched doesn't dissipate. Not outside, not inside, not even in the privacy of a locked room. Unseen eyes trace your movements, a prickling on the back of your neck that never fades. Your memory is a shattered mirror, shards of what happened pieced together into contradictory narratives. Did you walk for hours? Days? Was there someone else with you? The faces flicker, undefined, slipping away the moment you try to grasp them. You check locked doors multiple times, peer into dark corners, and find yourself staring into reflections. Windows, polished surfaces, puddles, searching for something you dread finding. The symbolic motif of the reflection follows you everywhere. It's in the distorted spoon at breakfast, showing not your face, but a stretched, unsettling caricature. It's in the brief shimmer on your phone screen, a gray-on-gray pattern that isn't part of the interface. It's the profound sense that the person looking back from any mirror isn't entirely you, or that something stands just behind you, always out of sight in your direct field of vision. Did you truly escape? Or did you merely open a door and step through, only to find the place you left wasn't a location you could leave behind, but a skin you are now wearing? The wrong exit wasn't a way out, it was a transformation. You are back, the world insists, but the air feels thinner, the colors muted, everything seen through a veil that wasn't there before. The silence isn't empty, it's listening. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet.